Hey everyone, welcome back to Elevator Pitch. My name is Joe Ennis, and today I am back with season 2 of Elevator Pitch. It's been a while. I had to take some time off to actually work with some clients to do pretty much this for them. And I actually wanted to start off season 2 with an old interview that I recorded last year with Fernanda Torres. Fernanda runs a podcast called Positive Blueprints. The podcast is for people that want to achieve a better mental and physical state, no matter where you are in life. Whatever you are battling, depression, anxiety, diabetes, a urinary tract infection, or you simply just want to achieve more in life, advanced practice research nurse Fernanda Torres will bring you ideas, information, and stories and interviews that will teach you how to overcome these things: anxiety, depression, improve your health, gain balance, and unlocking the secret keys to a better life is what the description of the podcast says and what they say. I really enjoyed the episode. She has a lot of great tips for people that are battling a lot of stress or anxiety when it comes to work. This was recorded during last year during COVID, so mental health was at an all-time high when it came to necessity. But I really enjoyed the episode and I learned a lot, so I wanted to start off season 2 with that episode. So enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Elevator Pitch. My name is Joe Ennis, and I am here today with Fernanda Torres. Fernanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm so happy to be here. Super excited.
So, Fernanda, tell us a little bit about Positive Blueprints and what you are setting out to accomplish with that.
Yes, thank you. So Positive Blueprints actually was born during the quarantine. And it happened because I'm a nurse practitioner and I was going to work every day seeing patients in clinic, diagnosing, treating. However, I had embarked on this inner self-healing journey with myself after suffering from anxiety and depression. And following the traditional medical route, I wasn't getting any relief. I wasn't getting any better. So I started doing this inner journey and self-healing journey. And I was able to basically overcome depression and anxiety and basically treat myself and heal myself. And during the quarantine, I was looking for ways that I could spread this message and help other people feel better and get to a better wellness and health state. And I was brainstorming basically, how can I do this, right? And so that led me to create a podcast, which is Positive Blueprints, and a secondary podcast called Wellness Wednesday Inspiration, where I have a co-host who's a nutritionist and a chiropractor. And the idea with these two podcasts is basically to be able to spread this message of wellness and healing to the world, and how we can always go deep within ourselves and just find the answers that we're looking for when it comes to not just wellness and health, but life in general.
That's awesome. That's great. Fernanda, what are some of the biggest issues that you see in the question I sent you? It says in your current field. I'm going to say more. What are the biggest issues that you see when it comes to how maybe we've been handling depression or mental stress? What are some of the issues that you see in that area, and how are you in Positive Blueprints and your other podcast trying to fix that problem and maybe address it?
Yes. So the biggest issue, and I'm going to actually spread it more to medicine in general, because it applies for diabetes, it applies for high blood pressure, it applies for even strokes and heart attacks and all of these things, is that we as humans are born to and designed actually and trained to feel something or look at something or hear something. So basically living out of our senses and react to it. And what happens with that is that we're living a life of reaction to our environment, which leads us to live a high stressful life, right? A lot of people wake up and they're running late to go to work and they spill their coffee and then they're pissed the entire day because they have a coffee stain, and then they're stuck in traffic, and all of these stressors actually over time, I'm talking 5, 10, 15 years of these stressors repeatedly lead up to all of these medical conditions. A lot of people don't see it. Now, when we turn to the other side and we're looking at how we're trained in medical field, us medical professionals, doctors, nurses, and even more people that are in the medical field, we're trained to see people as a system. So is it a problem with the cardiovascular system? Or is it a problem with the digestive system? Or is it a problem with your endocrine system? But the reality of it is that we are a whole human being, right? We are one person as a whole. So we can separate systems to treat. That's number one. And then number two, we're never really trained. And you can go through the whole medical school, you can go through the whole nursing route, and you're never really trained to literally look at the mind and how our thoughts have emotions, and how our emotions are sending chemical signals to our body, and how these chemical signals that we're constantly sending to our body lead up to, again, repeatedly over time, lead up to disease. And if we look at it, and there is more and more science that is coming out, with neuropsycho and epigenetics and the quantum field and all of these fields that are being studied, they clearly showed that a lot of diseases, a lot of conditions literally are created in our minds and the thoughts that we have and the emotions that we're feeling. So if we in the medical field are not necessarily looking at how the patients are thinking and how they're feeling and how that's leading up to disease, then I don't think we're ever treating the problems at the root of the cause. And if we're not treating problems at the root, then we're not necessarily treating to cure, but treating just to keep patients at a baseline.
Yeah, that makes sense. My follow-up question to that would be, what is the cure? Like, what is something that you guys would recommend either on your show or through your practice? What do you recommend that people do to kind of, cure that, or at least fight against it in a way that's beneficial?
That's an amazing question. Thank you for asking. So the first thing, and that's actually what I did when I was dealing with my own symptoms of anxiety and depression, and I was taking medications and I was doing a lot of the things externally. And it wasn't until I realized that the solutions lied within me. So the first thing that I did was I started being more aware of the thoughts. And we have about 40 to 50,000 thoughts every single day that we're unconscious of, we're unaware of, right? But a lot of those thoughts, because we're negative beings, most of us are negative beings, most of those thoughts are negative in nature. And like I just mentioned, every thought has an emotion. So if we're thinking a negative thought, we're having a negative emotion, emotions that are negative or low on that vibrational scale. So it's the first thing, the major first thing, it's being aware of the thoughts. If we're able to recognize that we have a voice, literally we have a voice inside of us, that it's never quiet, that it's always talking, and that it's, for the most part, usually always negative. And if we're able to recognize that every thought has an emotion, then we can start little by little, even if it's one thought at a time, we can start changing those thoughts. And if we change a negative thought, like my back is killing me, instead of saying that, say my back, it's always regenerating and it's always feeling better, and my body, it's always getting healthier, and I'm so healthy and I'm so happy, etc., etc. If we're able to change those negative thoughts for positive thoughts, we are literally sending a different communication to our body, right? So the major step, and it's not easy, it is not easy, the major step is recognizing those thoughts and changing those thoughts from negative to positive, so we can send a positive emotion. And the thing is, your brain and your mind doesn't have a way to differentiate between what you're saying, whether it's positive or negative. It just takes it. So if you're literally only thinking negative thoughts, it just takes negative ideas from you, right? So it's changing those negative thoughts for positive thoughts, sending those positive vibrations to your body. And then little by little, those positive signals start actually sending a message of wellness to your cells.
That's very interesting. I think I've heard like ideas of it. Like I've heard before, like if you're ever like really bummed, to just like smile and your brain will literally like make you feel better or whatever. So like that's kind of cool to see that you guys are actually tackling that on a bigger scale. So Fernanda, next question, what sets your business, or let's say your podcast, Positive Blueprints? There's a lot of wellness people out there. There's a lot of people saying they have the answer, whether that they come from a medical field. Some are more like, mental wellness type groups. There's people, dietitians. Everyone feels like they have the cure to this. What is setting Positive Blueprints apart from, let's just say, for example, another podcast that is focusing on mental wellness?
That's an excellent question. The reason why we are different from anybody else is because we are literally attacking the problems at the root cause. And the root cause is the listeners, us, me. I'm the root cause of my issues, and the listeners are the root cause of their issues as well, right? So if we're able to recognize, and like I mentioned, it's not easy, it's not an easy process, and it takes a lot of mental conditioning and the conditioning from all of the unconscious paradigms that we've been trained, since we were born and even before we were born. So it's not an easy process. But if we're able to understand that everything originates in the mind, because how you think, again, is how you feel, and your feelings lead up to action. So if you're not eating well, if you're overweight, if you have diabetes, if you have a heart attack, if you have a stroke, if you have cancers, autoimmune conditions, everything is originated in the mind. So I'm not tackling medical problems per se as individual medical problems, but I'm tackling every single problem that we're encountering now. And a lot of these problems are pandemics now, right? They're literally diabetes and strokes and heart attacks and cancers are the top 4 leading causes of death in the United States. And I believe worldwide as well. So if we're able to literally let the viewer know and understand, because it's not an easy concept to understand, because what you can't see and what you can't feel, a lot of people don't believe. So if we're able to get that across, and if we're able to get people to understand the power, because it's a power of their thoughts and their feelings, and how those thoughts and those feelings are the root cause of disease, and we're able to literally start working from the root cause, then we can eliminate not only the current problems, but future problems to come.
That's awesome. And I think something else, just on a more basic note, that's kind of cool that sets you guys apart is you guys came from a medical practice, and you guys have seen it, and you've studied it, and you've seen the problems with it or the things that need to be changed, and you guys are working on that. So that's really cool as well, I find.
That's very true. That's very true. And I practiced the traditional medical route because that was my training, right? As a nurse practitioner,
Right.
that was my training. So I went to school with the science and biology and all of these things. That was my training, and that's what I did also for years and years in my practice. So I've done both of them. And I can tell you that because of my personal experience and what I've been able to accomplish ever since, I am literally educating more people about the root cause and the mind and the thoughts and the feelings, the change and the amount of positive transformations that I've seen, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's cool. I have 2 questions here, and maybe they kind of have to do with 2 different ends of the same thing. Number 1, why should people, listeners or people that, maybe don't necessarily know the importance of mental wellness, why should they care about this topic? And maybe they are like depressed, and they know they are, but they just don't care anyways. Why should people, or maybe they're not, and they just, they don't care, and they don't really know what's going on. Why should people care about mental wellness more than they are now?
Well, first of all, mental wellness and mental conditions are in the rise, right? The 2019 World Happiness Report showed that negative emotions are on the rise worldwide. This is worldwide. And that was 2019. Imagine 2020 with all of the madness and
Can't
COVID and
imagine.
people getting sick and losing jobs and all of the changes that are happening worldwide.
Yeah.
So one of them is recognizing that these problems are not going away. As a matter of fact, they're increasing. We find more and more people dealing with anxiety, with depression, with adjustment disorders, with suicide attempts, and more than that, right? So number one, no, and nobody's excluded, right? These conditions don't discriminate. So the first thing is recognizing that anybody could be at risk if we're not aware of where the problems originate, and if we're not treating problems at the root, then it can happen to you. That's number one. And number two, a lot of people don't necessarily want to put in the work. And we are conditioned now in a society where we want the easy fix, and we want the quick fix. We want the rapid, the quick pill that is going to get us better by tomorrow.
Right.
But if we're dealing with that, if we're living like this, we are literally just maybe keeping things at baseline, but we're not necessarily ever curing or treating. So if you already are dealing with something like anxiety and depression and you're taking a pill, you know that maybe the pill is keeping you stable, but it's not curing you. And your doctor is never going to tell you, oh, if you take this pill for 3 months, you're going to be cured from anxiety. We can't do that because it's not the truth, right?
Right.
But if you really want to put in the work and you really want to say, you know what, I'm done with feeling this way, or I simply don't want to get to the point of feeling that way. And this, again, this doesn't only apply for mental conditions, but any condition in general. Then we got to start looking at us as the cause and us as the solution, because we are. And if we're more than capable, and we can do it everywhere, right? Because the mind does, it comes to us everywhere we go. If we're taking a shower, if we're driving, if we are sleeping, if we are eating, the mind is always with us. So that means that we can always work with the mind. So it's a process that we can literally work within us 24/7. And if we're able to treat the problems at the root, then we can literally affirm and confirm and reassure that they will go away, because you are dealing with the actual cause of
That's
the problem.
awesome. That's really cool. And then my second question following up to that is actually the opposite side. There are a lot of people out there that are trying to make a difference like you, and they understand the importance of mental wellness. But I think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think that sometimes mental wellness can be a bit of a turnoff for people, because they're just like, I don't want to hear more about mental wellness. People tell me that I should, like, they tell me all these things on how I can stop being depressed, and then it just, like, maybe they don't think it works or whatever. What advice would you give to other people that have the same mission as you, that are trying to bring awareness to mental wellness and are trying to fight for people to, be able to defeat their depression or their anxiety or whatever it is? What advice would you give to people with the same mission as you to be able to, in a way that is not attacking people, bring people in and entice them into actually becoming interested in the field? Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yes. I think the first thing is that people can sense a lot of the things that you're saying and how you portray them, right? So how you communicate instead of, and I think a lot of it with mental wellness, because a lot of people don't want to kind of deal with it and hear about it, like you mentioned, is that you don't want to just come out as you're educating and you're telling people what to do, right? Because a lot of people don't want to be told what to do, especially when they're feeling sad or anxious or depressed, right? It's like, get away. That's the last thing that I want to hear.
That's the last thing they want. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we gotta change the approach from telling people, you gotta start doing this and you gotta start doing that and you gotta stop doing this and you gotta stop doing that, but saying, you know what, this has been my life experience, and I communicate. I'm very open about my life experience and how I dealt with my own anxiety and depression and how bad it got for me and everything that I did before and taking medications and all these things and all of my journey of inner self and inner work and and healing myself. So I go more about conversational. This is what I've been through. This is what has worked for me. This is kind of what I do. And then I go a little bit more about how the system, how our body and our mind works, right? The minute that you start telling people what to do and what not to do, people turn off. And I've heard that, and I've seen it, and I've experienced it myself as a provider, and also since starting the podcast. So I think it's more about relating to people. That's number one. And then sending the vibrational signal of, I want to truly help you because you can do it. And I truly believe that anybody can do it, because we all have the power within us. Everybody has it within us. We're equipped from birth with this inner healing power that we all have. And an example that I always give is, if you cut your finger, what happens? It heals. And we don't have to think about it. We don't have to do anything about it. The finger simply heals, right? Our body is always willing to, or not willing, it's always trying to get back to wellness and balance and restore ourselves and heal ourselves. So just like your body heals, if we're not messing with our own inner healing journey, whether it's a mental healing journey or a physical healing journey, If we're not messing with it in regards to our thoughts and how we're thinking and how we're feeling, then your body's always going to restore itself back to nature, to balance, to wellness. So it's kind of giving those tools without telling people what to do, if it makes sense.
Right. No, that makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense. And I bet it, like, I have a lot of friends or colleagues and connections that are into this stuff and they listen to this podcast. And so they'll definitely understand it too, I think, which is important. One reason I asked the question is because I know it'd be super beneficial for a lot of the people that I talk to a lot. Fernanda, who are your ideal, well, not ideal, who is this podcast for? Let me say that. What types of people should listen to this podcast? Should it only be people that are depressed? Should it be people that, are trying to help? Who are your ideal listeners?
So if you are alive, if you have thoughts, which we all do, and if you have to deal with life, just like everybody else does, then you can benefit from listening to this podcast.
I thought you'd say something like that.
It's not only a wellness podcast. It's literally, if you want to do something more in life, something bigger with your life, and you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like you are having these self-doubt beliefs or anything like that, if you're dealing with any medical condition, not just mental conditions, but any physical or mental condition, if you are feeling like at any point you are not fulfilling your life or your mission or living up to your dreams or your goals or anything like that, this podcast is for you, because we're literally going from the mind, and the mind is what everything originates from. So it's more of a process of helping others understand how the mind works. And if we're able to understand, really truly understand how the mind works, then we can literally break any barriers, any obstacles that we've set out for ourselves, and we can literally just propel in life and be able to accomplish anything, whether it's a mental goal or a physical goal or a wellness goal or a life goal. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it all works the same way.
That's awesome. So Fernanda, thank you so much for being here today. It's been super, super cool. And I've definitely learned a lot, and I'll definitely listen, because I feel like I can always improve stuff like that and always think more positively than I do. And especially this year's been crazy for a lot of people. So I bet this is the time to have a podcast about that, because, it's going to be very, very beneficial for a lot of people. Tell me, where people can find your show. Please plug away everything you're involved with, everything you're doing, however people can get in touch with you or listen to the show, or I don't know if you're selling anything, but if you are, please plug away everything.
Wonderful. So I am on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find me at Positive Blueprints. And then I also have a website. You can find it at www.positiveblueprints.com. It has a little bit more of my services on that website. So if you want to find out a little bit more of what I do, that would be the perfect site. And then I also created a free book. And this book goes a little bit more in depth about our thoughts and our feelings, our emotions, and goal setting, because goal setting it's super important. And also everything, how it's attached to health in general. And if you want to download this book so you can start applying these concepts today, because we shouldn't wait, we can apply them today, then you can download it at www.fernandacastaneda.com.
That's awesome. And obviously, listeners, all of the links to everything she just mentioned are in the description. Audio listeners, in the description. YouTube, in the description. Check there. Please get in touch with Fernanda if you have any questions. I know she'd love to talk to you. And check out what she's doing and all the other cool stuff she's doing. And get her book. I bet it's super, super beneficial. I haven't read it, but I'll get it. Fernanda, thank you so much for being here today. Anything you want to close with before we roll out?
I just want to thank you for the invitation. I am super excited to be here. Every opportunity that I get to spread this message and bring more awareness, it literally fills my heart with joy, and it's my passion, and I am super excited. And anybody that can benefit from this content, because everybody can benefit from this content, even if it's a small change that we're able to make, it's a significant change at the end of the day. So I just want to thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you, Fernanda. It was super cool. And I think this episode is going to hopefully help a lot of people and hopefully get a lot more people interested in their own mental health. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Hey, I want to thank Fernanda for coming on again. It was a great time. Listeners, if you are listening to this on a podcast platform, please subscribe. It really means a lot to me. If you do that, it shows that people are out there listening. If you are on YouTube, click the button above to subscribe, or click another video to my left over here if you're interested in another video. Thanks again for listening. See you next week. Good to be back.